Good morning, everybody. It is 9 a.m. and call the Marathon County Infrastructure Committee meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have 3 members for the committee here in person. We also have 3 members that are online. Supervisor or Vice Chair Dickinson is excused. Move on to item number 3, public comment. Do we have anybody wishing to provide public comment? Please come forward to the microphone. We'll give you 3 minutes and all comments should be addressed to the chair. And then if you could state your name and address too, please.
And this way? Yeah, this way?
Yeah, that's.
Okay. It's weird you're over here. Okay, my name is Trish Hartwig. I live at 206930 County Road O, which is also my little bar called Reservoir Dog Saloon. So I've been open almost 5 years, and the bar itself has been there for over 30 years. But apparently I've brought some success to it that hasn't been there before. And there's limited parking and people have been parking on the road. So been trying to be proactive. I understand the concerns. I think we've come to a pretty good compromise with signage going on the opposite side of the road and only having parking on one side. I've talked to all the neighbors about selling property, and they're not going to do it. They've been there for a long time. It's family land. They've been very good about letting me use space in their driveways. They're very supportive of me, but land is not an option. And just to say, I am not your normal bar. I am open 4 days a week. I close by 11 or earlier. And really our foundation at Reservoir Dog Saloon is about helping the community and animal rescue. So we do a lot of fundraisers for saving dogs. We donate a lot of money to all the local shelters and dog rescues. And we help a lot of people out who are struggling. So we've had no incidents other than one accident, which had nothing to do with the parking. Both people were ticketed. One was driving pretty recklessly, and the other one pulled out. He was on a motorcycle. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. But I think we've addressed a lot of the issues on Highway O, and one of the bigger ones, and one of the, with the one gentleman who got ticketed for the driving, is the speed. And I've also presented reducing the speed limit there with a lot of pushback, and I'm not sure why. We've got fishermen that park on Highway O. It can be dangerous in spots, and the bridge is dangerous. So, reducing the speed limit would be great too, but right now I'm looking for a compromise, and that's trying to make the parking safer. That's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Not having anybody online, nobody else wishing to provide public comment in the room, we'll move on to item 4, approval of January 8th, 2026 Infrastructure Committee meeting minutes. Meeting minutes are in your packet. What is your preference? Motion by Supervisor Greiner, second by Supervisor Seubert. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the January 8th. Was that?
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of approving the January 8th, 2026 meeting minutes signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Minutes are approved 6-0. Moving on to item 5, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. We have nothing for 5A. We'll move on to 5B, discussion and possible action by infrastructure to forward to county board for consideration. B1, consideration of WCA transportation resolution. I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Sorry to pull my mic up there. There's a resolution on there. Basically, there's been an ask for all of the counties to get together and have a collective voice for some changes for the funding for transportation in the state of Wisconsin. Over the past few years, we've benefited from having a surplus in the state, and they've put money into the transportation budgets for that. But the reality of it is they're looking at shortfalls coming up into the next biennium. And one of the things that's kind of a key with that is the trends that have been going on with the funding. Many of you know that like gas tax has been one of the main things that funds transportation for the state. And it's been flat for, I think, since 2005 or 6. Mr. Robinson is nodding in approval there. The actual buying power of that from 2006 to 2024 has diminished by 32%. So because that gas tax indexing stopped, cars have become more fuel efficient. Registration fees have gone up slightly, but the buying power of that money has gone down 32% over the past approximately 18 years. Whereas the general fund money, which is tied into things like sales tax and property tax, which increases as inflation goes up and products go up in price. That one has increased by 14% over that same time frame. So the push from WCA and WCHA and TDA are to get that collective voice to the state to get them to address this and actually implement some changes so that the transportation funding can be sustained and not plugged in by the surplus, which may or may not exist in the future. So that was the ask, is for this committee to approve that resolution and then move it on to the county board beyond that. I don't know if, Lance, I think you might have put this one on there if you had anything else to add.
Ditto to what Kevin said. There's a memo in your packet that kind of lays out the same thing. But in addition to the only other thing I'd say about one-time money, we've greatly benefited as a county, but the state as well, with the American Rescue Plan Act funds and all of the other pandemic-related funding streams. As you all know, those are gone. So those one-time dollars are no longer there, and we're looking at that fiscal cliff that Kevin alluded to.
I think the packet did a great job of laying everything out here. So does anybody have any questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
And that was Jensen?
Correct.
We have a motion from Jensen. Do we have a second? Second by Seubert. Further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving moving the WCA transportation resolution on.
I have a question, sorry.
Go ahead.
Object. So with this resolution, it's not asking for any sort of defined solution to any of these problems, is it? It's just saying that we know the sequestered funds are not keeping up with the needs of the state, and we should be looking for other alternative measures to keep up with the funding gaps. Basically what we're asking, correct? Got it, just verifying that, thank you.
For those of you that are online, Administrator Leonard gave a thumbs up as an answer. No further questions or comments. All those in favor of moving the WCA transportation resolution onto the full county board signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, we have unanimous approval to move forward the WCA transportation resolution to full county board. We're on to item 5B2, parking on County Highway O, Basswood Lane to Strand Lane, Town of Bergen. I'll hand it over to Kevin.
Okay, and this was the item that Ms. Hartwig was talking about with the Reservoir Dog Saloon there. So, I don't know, are you able to pull up just that overview map? That one. This item has been discussed kind of mostly informally over the past few years, and something that I knew the discussions were going on, but wasn't really involved with any of them until recently. So I connected with Ms. Hartwig, and the Town of Bergen chairman also contacted me to let me know that they had a couple meetings where they were discussing this. Some residents, my understanding is some residents voiced concerns about the parking that was there. Essentially, I think she summed it up well. The bar is much busier on nights, especially when they have an event like a band, than it historically has been. So it went from probably some occasional parking out on the highway to at times they'll have parking on both sides of the highway. And I think I've heard during big events all the way up 1/4 mile north and south to those side streets. So. Okay. So the challenge from a safety perspective is when you have that parking on both sides, it is a 55-mile-an-hour road, and we typically do not change the speed limits for occasional events like that, because otherwise the other 80% of the time or 90% of the time, essentially you're going to get the law-abiding drivers who are going to be violating that speed limit if there's no need for a reduced speed limit in there. Mike is here from the Sheriff's Department too. He could probably speak to this, but there's a safe driving speed that drivers have a responsibility to do too. So if conditions aren't such that it's safe to do 60 miles an hour, drivers have some responsibility to realize those conditions and drive slower during those times, similar to winter driving. So what we talked about was, in order to improve sight distance for people and provide additional space for any maneuvering that would have to happen, say somebody does walk out, if you have cars parked on both sides, you're down to 22 feet, and if somebody walks out into that area and there's 2 cars passing, there isn't room for all those activities. Where if we eliminate parking on the opposite side of the road, we would have less people walking across the road. Drivers do tend to shy away from obstacles, so they would have additional space to move over. And if somebody would have to make a maneuver for somebody that would, say, just come out unexpectedly between vehicles, they're gonna have more space to be able to make that maneuver safely without hitting another parked car. So what I talked about with Ms. Hartwig was having no parking on the opposite side, and put that in the resolution together. This is something that does go, it's in our ordinances, so if you guys would have to approve that, the resolution will go through, and then once it's in our ordinances, we would install the no parking signs on the opposite side, the east side of the road. So I guess if there's any questions, I'd field those, but I think I tried to summarize everything in that memo for you.
Thank you, Kevin. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Supervisor Seubert?
Would the speed limit stay 55 there, and what would the speed limits be?
The speed limit would stay at 55.
55. Now on Highway C, there's a Halter Bridge bar where the speed limit drops down to 35, or maybe a 1/4 mile past that tavern. Why couldn't that be done the same thing on Highway O?
We could look at that. I think there's a few more conflict points up by that intersection there too, though. I don't know the history on that one. It's something that could be looked at. My gut is unless this is something where every day there's something going on out there or more frequently, that would be the time that you would look at that. But there really is only a couple driveways on that section. There's 4 driveways.
And then if you just go down the road a little ways, there's another bar that is.
If we can get you to come up to the microphone, please.
Yeah, there's 4 driveways, and then just down the road, just a couple miles down, is another bar was called Moon Saloon. That also has a reduced speed limit, and they're no longer there. It's now in foreclosure. So there's more traffic by my area than there is there. And also, I will say, in addition, Highway O is heavily used by bicycles. We get many bicycles riding down that road. They come in big groups. They stop in at my bar a lot, and they'll use the bathroom. They don't spend any money, but that's okay. I mean, they're using Highway O, and they're going across the bridge, which there is no white lines on that bridge. It's kind of scary. And then we also get a lot of dog walkers, runners, and let me also add, we have now, with the laws changing, a ton of four-wheelers and side-by-sides, and they are not going that speed limit. And often we have young kids, and it really concerns a lot of residents there when they're using that road and people are hauling butt and they're coming over those hills. If they don't see that group of side-by-sides or four-wheelers, somebody's going to get hit. I mean, there are a lot of concerns on that stretch. It's heavily used. So it's not just my bar.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Supervisor Seibert.
In the last week, I've driven that road, and it's, to me, the concern is the gawkers. As soon as you get close to water, people are slowing down less than 35, and they're gawking out on who's fishing, who's doing this, who's doing that. You know, and then you got cars doing 55, screaming past them. There's certain areas where I think 35 would be appropriate. I might be all wrong on that, but I just think by driving that road and seeing the gawkers that are driving that road.
Yeah, I think in the instance you're talking about by Halder Bar where S intersects, that's a different situation there.
Oh, I'm talking highway.
Yeah, yeah, and I've driven plenty of times too. And I think the other differential with the area in Moon there, that you have a number of commercial buildings, you have additional residents there, you have intersections there. That's a little bit different than a situation where we have a rural tavern that's on a county highway with, doesn't have sufficient parking. So I think what Kevin's proposing, in my opinion, makes the most sense. I've driven through that area plenty of times when it's busy and when it's not, when there's nothing going on there. 55 feels very adequate. When there's stuff going on, especially in the summertime, when you have cars on both sides of the roads, it is very tight. I feel like this would do a lot to solve that conflict. Questions, comments from anybody online?
Just a comment from me, Supervisor Jensen. Well, I'm really happy that Ms. Hartwig's bar is doing well. I think, these establishments are fewer and far between, and it does provide good opportunities for people that are, getting out with their side-by-sides. So I would be in favor of putting the posted no parking signs on that east side. And, we can evaluate it and ratchet up as we need to, whether it's potential fines for parking there or reducing the speed limit. But I think this is a good first measure just to improve the safety in that specific area.
Thank you, Supervisor Jensen. Anything further? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, this is Chair, this is Supervisor Harder.
Go ahead.
What was the objection to possibly lowering the speed limit in that area?
Kevin, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, and I guess, Chair, you have to, the agenda item is just for parking, so if we get too far into that, we probably need to put that on the agenda for future. But we would have to do a speed study and review that in order to make that decision.
Yeah, I would agree in terms of conflict resolution for what we're trying to look at here. I think Kevin did a good job identifying that this is a occasional issue created when there's good activity at the bar, and otherwise it's not an issue. But coming up with a parking solution, I think, makes the most sense in this case. I'd entertain a motion.
Okay, well, I think,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I think most of us are familiar with that area and that road being the way that it is, and I agree with a couple of things that have been said there, but I do agree it's an issue with the speed limit there, and I know it's something that we'd have to look at, and that's not part of the agenda that we're looking at right now, but what would be the motion, I guess, that you guys are looking to pass on that?
It would be a motion to install no parking on the east side of the road from Basswood Lane to Strand Lane on County Highway O.
Okay. All right, I understand. Thank you.
Chair, would it be appropriate to add to that a speed study should be done? Would that be appropriate?
The committee, well, I'll ask our administrator based on our agenda language. Is that appropriate?
Whether or not you want to incorporate it in the motion, I think that would be appropriate. Staff can do that.
Okay.
If the direction is to do a speed study and bring it back, we'll do it. From a practical standpoint, maybe we allow the parking to be in place for a bit to see what the impact is from a practical standpoint, at least before we do that study. But I think it would be appropriate to include that in the motion. Just to clarify, this does require an ordinance change, so this will go to the full board.
Supervisor Soibert.
I'll make a motion to restrict parking on the east side of the road. Parking allowed only on the west side of the road.
And that's on County Highway O between Basswood Lane and Strand Lane, correct?
Yes.
Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second? We have a second from Griner. Further questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the motion, which would restrict parking on the east side of County Highway O between Basswood Lane and Strand Lane, signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? Hearing none, we have
Nay.
unanimous approval. That'll move on to the full county board. We're on item 6, educational presentations and committee discussion. 6A, CCIT projects. Director Klein.
Good morning. Our project updates are in your packet. We have a lot of stuff going on, especially in our network team right now. We hear probably about a third to halfway through a phone system replacement. That seems to be going fairly well. This week is mainly on the City Hall. We did City Hall yesterday, and then the police and fire later this week. The other thing is one of the things that happens is we plan for projects and then either something breaks or we get emergency patch requests. So we had 2 of those things in the last couple of days. We had about an hour outage on our dispatch environment because we had equipment in Anago that's part of our backup environment that failed and didn't fail over like it's supposed to. So we have a ticket open with Cisco to check that out. And then last night we had to take down our Wi-Fi controllers and patch them because they had a patch that needed to get done quickly. So we took about a 30 to 40 minute outage last night on our Wi-Fi controllers. Our desktop team is working on moving phones over to Intune. When the election happens in April, we're planning to turn off the Goodreader environment that we've been using for county board. It's very rarely being used now, and it is well beyond the end of support for it. So I had a couple of conversations with board members and with Lance, and we're gonna, after the election, we're gonna shut down the Goodreader system. And on the purchasing side, I'm working with Chris on 2 projects. One is for looking for a new scheduler for the law enforcement community, sheriff's department in particular. Our hope is we have an RFP out on the street that just came back. We hope to replace our scheduler for all of our public safety. So that'll be sheriff, and then at the city, the police and fire department. So we are just starting to go through the RFP responses. And then Chris is not here today, but we've talked about it in the past. The other large project we have is to replace our jail intercom system. That'll be spread out over about the next year, 15 months. And so they're just working on finalizing the contract with that. So pretty busy. Any questions on any projects?
Any questions for Director Klein?
And then I had a fun environment. My office flooded. So I'm homeless and looking for a new home right now.
Thank you for your report. We'll move on to item 6B, Marathon County 2026 Comprehensive Plan Draft. I'll hand it over to Lori. Oh.
Thank you, Chair. This is back on your agenda, just as a reminder that the Executive Committee is still seeking feedback and comment from the committees related to the whole draft, but especially the goals and objectives within the plan. One thing I did want to highlight for infrastructure was a conversation was had at HR Finance related to the transportation goal and the use of the word highest standard versus high standard or highest standard practicable, I think is another one we talked about. And basically the conversation was about that, an example that was brought up was that the PACER rating that's been approved by infrastructure is actually at a 7, which wouldn't necessarily tie to the word highest in terms of a goal. But I think on the other hand, there's the argument of a goal is aspirational, so you can definitely still continue to use the word highest. So we thought we'd just bring it up here at infrastructure as well, because we know exec will take it up next week as well in terms of what words you want to use in the goal, what makes the most sense. So originally it was reading as maintained to the highest standard. One option we came up with was just to put to a high standard, and then that would become the discussion amongst infrastructure going forward, what high standard is defined as. But do you want to add anything to that?
Nope, you laid that out very well.
Questions, comments from the committee? Supervisor Griner.
I would say highest practical standard would be acceptable, because like you said, it's a moving goal, and we are limited with our resources and our abilities sometimes, but sometimes we're not. So by putting that in there the highest possible, it would allow us to, not to say have some fudge factor in there with it, but it would account for the ebbs and flows of availabilities over time as well. If that would cause any problems, I would turn it over to the administrator for that, but.
No, I mean, I think you laid it out well. It's really wordsmithing at this point. As long as it doesn't say to the highest standard, it recognizes whether you include the word highest standard practicable or highest to a high standard. Either way, what that conveys to staff is that we need to have a conversation with the board about what resources we have and what does that mean. So if anybody felt really strongly about a particular phraseology, that's why we brought it back. Otherwise, at the end of the day, we'll come up with some phrase that gets at, I think, your point, Supervisor Griner, and include that. But we are at the wordsmithing stage. As Lori said, this has been to numerous committees, numerous times. And if you have any concern with any of the language, just reach out and let us know.
Thank you. I agree with that. I mean, it's a 400-page document. I don't know that it's 400 pages. I'm just assuming it is at this point. And these goals are aspirational. I would agree that we don't want to be at the highest standard from a financial standpoint. If we had all 10s on our PACER rating, that'd be phenomenal. But also, I don't think the taxpayers would want to see the end result of what that would cost. Questions, comments? Anybody online? Hearing none, we thank you for the update on the comprehensive plan. We'll move on to 6C, broadband update. Assume that is Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair.
You got your microphone on, sir?
I do.
Might have to get a little closer to it then.
Is it picking up? I think that does. All right, in your packet, beginning, I think on page 35, is some information that was shared with Broadband Task Force and both eastern and western towns relative to where we are in the broadband equity and access deployment program, that $42.5 billion of federal money, of which $1.055 billion was allocated to the state of Wisconsin. As you know, a year ago, we were here and asking the county board to endorse multiple firms relative to their participation in BEAD, and we adopted the resolution supporting Bug Tussle, Mosaic, and one other firm, and unfortunately Mosaic and the other firm were not awarded any dollars, but the feds pulled back the rules in May and reissued rules for the benefit of the bargain, where they basically threw out a lot of the provisions in the original BEAD process, including affordability, fiber to the premise as a preferred method of delivery, and asked states to go out and work with the internet service providers to develop a plan to serve the in Wisconsin, 175,464 broadband service locations that were underserved. As a result of that, they came back with a number of proposals And there was a series of negotiations that took place last fall, and the state submitted a plan to National Telephonics Information Administration in, I believe, September, October, that was approved on December 2nd, that called for, or laid out how they would propose to spend those funds in the state. Of that $1.055 billion, the benefit of the bargain resulted in cost savings. The current estimated cost for providing the service in Wisconsin is $696,592,000. In Marathon County, the breakdown by technology is Bug Tussle was awarded 2,161 broadband service locations. Country Wireless has a small portion up in northwestern Marathon County, 17 locations. SpaceX was a big winner at 4,164 locations. Spectrum has a number of locations on the west side of the county, 1,221, and then Wittenberg Telephone Company has 225 locations for a total of 7,788 locations. There's two maps in the packet. One shows by technology. SpaceX is using low Earth orbiting satellites for the connection. The concern that I have is that there's a higher access cost and a higher operating monthly fee for that. We then have fiber represented by Charter, Spectrum, Bug Tussle, and Wittenberg Tel. And then you've got a fixed wireless, which is Country Wireless. But you've got the maps out there. The plan is for the Public Service Commission to enter into contracts with the various internet service providers. I don't know how long that will take. I think it got complicated recently because SpaceX asked for addendum letters with all of the states, and the NTIA says you can't do that. So I'm sure that there will be some issues that we'll try to resolve both at a state and federal level. Once the contracts are signed, they've got 4 years to deploy the service in those areas. Hopefully at the end of the time, the vast majority of the county will be served. One of the issues that comes out of the benefit of the bargain is there's a difference. Nationwide, there's 42.5 billion. There's 21 billion left over. And the question is, what happens with that money? The legislation called for the money to go to the states. In Wisconsin, they submitted as part of their Volume 2 application a proposal that part of that be used for workforce development, and they were specifically looking at working with North Central Technical College and others to try to make sure that we had the workers and the expertise to do the rollout. There's a listening session next week, Wednesday, where NTIA will be looking for thoughts on how that money should be or could be spent. There are proposals that it could be used to expand service to anchor locations, town halls, libraries, community centers, et cetera, for adaptation, for affordability requirements, and others. And I did register for that session. There's a nationwide session with 2 hours, and I doubt that they're going to get to everyone, but the Public Service Commission has some thoughts, again, that they'd like to do work for workforce development and are supportive of other ways of expanding access, but that's where we are today in the world of broadband. Jerry, is there anything you want to add? All right, one other thing quickly. We have been having some discussions with Bug Tussle relative to their work and their ability to meet the timelines of completing the work this summer. We have had some discussions. They are proposing alternatives to the Southern Loop, which is a concern. We've been looking internally at what our options are. We're going to be meeting on Monday morning internally to just talk about our preference is fiber, but what are the options, and then continuing discussions with Bug Tussle, and we'll keep this committee posted as we move ahead.
Thank you for the update. Anything further from Director Klein?
I'll just mention that they are, Bug Tussle has, I think you guys have seen the map before. They go from Wausau up to Brokaw and then, and then go west over and come down through Athens, over almost Abbotsford, and then go to our tower. that's at 29 Wayside. And that fiber's all in place, and they, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, they've been doing the splices into our connections. So I do hope to light that up in the next 2 months or so.
Thank you. Questions, comments from committee members, either here in the room or online? Hearing none, we thank you for the broadband update. We are on to item number 7, next meeting date and time, announcements and future agenda items. 7A, committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. 7B, next meeting date, Thursday, March 5th, 2026 at 9 a.m. We're up for item number 8. Motion by Soibert, or do you have a question, or is that a motion?
Future idea.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
If anything comes up on that alternate energy sources, windmills and solar, that we stay on top of that with this committee, because their application is due by the end of the year, so that's 9 months. And they're gonna move fast, and we have to move fast to stay on top. So if anything comes up that we need to know, that it's brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you, that's good direction to staff. If we have anything coming up that would impact our infrastructure, we would look for an agenda item at this committee. We're up for item number 8, adjournment. What are your wishes? Motion by Soibert, second by Griner. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your time today and enjoy the rest of your day.